A king sent Jason on a mission that was supposed to be impossible: sail to the edge of the known world, steal a golden fleece guarded by a deadly dragon, and somehow make it home alive. But Jason wasn't the most powerful hero on that ship. And without one unexpected ally, he probably never would have made it past the first challenge. Long before Jason became a hero, his uncle Peleus ruled the Greek kingdom of Iolcus. But Peleus had a problem. An old prophecy warned him to beware a man who would arrive wearing only one sandal. Years later, that man appeared. His name was Jason. Jason had been raised away from the kingdom, but now he returned to claim the throne that belonged to his family. And when Peleus saw him, he noticed something strange. Jason was wearing only one sandal. Peleus immediately became afraid. But instead of killing Jason, he came up with a better plan. He told Jason that if he really wanted to prove himself worthy of the throne, he should bring back the Golden Fleece from the distant land of Colchis. It sounded like a heroic challenge. It was actually a death sentence. The Golden Fleece was hanging in a sacred grove in Colchis, guarded by a huge serpent or dragon that never slept. Peleus probably expected Jason to disappear forever. He had badly underestimated him. Jason gathered some of the greatest heroes of the age and built a ship called the Argo. The men who sailed on it became known as the Argonauts. And this wasn't exactly a group of ordinary sailors. Among them were Heracles, the mighty son of Zeus; Orpheus, the legendary musician whose music could move even the gods; the twins Castor and Polydeuces; and the winged brothers Zets and Calais. There were many others too, and ancient versions of the story don't always give exactly the same list. But one thing was clear. Jason had assembled a serious crew. Then the Argo pushed away from Greece. And the real adventure began. The journey was filled with dangers. At one point, the Argonauts reached the island of Lemnos, where they stayed for a time with its women. Later, they faced the Dolions, a people who first welcomed them but were accidentally attacked after the Argonauts returned to the area at night. Then came the Babricians, whose king Amycus challenged strangers to boxing matches. Polydeuces accepted. And beat him. But the strangest trouble came when Heracles lost a young companion named Hylus. Hylus went looking for water and was pulled into a spring by water nymphs. Heracles searched for him, but the Argonauts eventually sailed away without him. The great hero was left behind. And Jason had lost one of the strongest men on his crew. But the hardest part of the journey was still ahead. The Argo finally reached Colchis, ruled by King Aetes. Jason told the king exactly why he had come. He wanted the Golden Fleece. Aetes wasn't about to hand it over. Instead, he gave Jason a series of impossible tasks. First, Jason had to yoke 2 enormous fire-breathing bulls. Then he had to use them to plow a field. And that wasn't even the worst part. Aetes gave Jason a sack of dragon's teeth and ordered him to plant them in the ground. Jason did. And suddenly, armed warriors rose from the earth. Imagine finishing one impossible job, only to watch an entire army grow out of the soil. Jason was in serious trouble. But then something unexpected happened. King Aetes had a daughter named Medea. She was no ordinary princess. Medea was skilled in magic, and she had fallen in love with Jason. With divine help, she gave him a special ointment that protected his body from the bull's fire and strength. She also told him how to survive the warriors that would rise from the dragon's teeth. Jason didn't have to defeat them one by one. He threw a stone among them. The warriors blamed each other. And soon they were fighting amongst themselves. Jason had passed the test. But Aetes still had no intention of giving him the fleece. So Jason and Medea went to the sacred grove. There it was. The Golden Fleece. Bright and impossible to miss, hanging from a tree while the enormous guardian watched over it. And this was the moment the entire journey had been leading toward. Medea used her magic to put the dragon to sleep. Jason grabbed the fleece. And ran. Jason and the Argonauts escaped Colchis with Medea. But King Eats wasn't going to let them leave peacefully. He sent ships after them. The escape became a desperate race across the sea. In some versions of the myth, Medea's brother Absyrtus is killed during the escape, though the details differ between ancient accounts. Eventually, Jason and his crew made their way back toward Greece. But the journey home was almost as dangerous as the journey there. They faced storms, strange lands, hostile people, and deadly obstacles. And after all of it, Jason finally returned to Iolcus. He had the Golden Fleece. He had survived the journey. And he had Medea beside him. It looked like the perfect ending. It wasn't. Jason had completed Peleus's impossible challenge. But Peleus still refused to give up the throne. Medea helped Jason again, tricking Peleus's daughters into believing that they could restore their father to youth by cutting him up and boiling him in a cauldron. They tried. And Peleus died. But Jason and Medea still didn't get the happy ending they wanted. They were forced to leave Iolcus and eventually settled in Corinth. And this is where Jason's story takes a much darker turn. Years later, Jason abandoned Medea to marry another woman. Medea's revenge became one of the most horrifying stories in Greek mythology, told most famously in Euripides' tragedy Medea. So the story of the Golden Fleece wasn't really the end. It was only the beginning of Jason's downfall. The story of Jason and the Argonauts isn't just about a magical golden sheep's skin. It's about a man trying to take back a kingdom, a crew of heroes risking everything for one impossible mission, and a woman whose help makes the mission possible. Jason gets the glory. But Medea's knowledge and magic are what allow him to survive. And that's one of the most interesting things about the myth. The hero doesn't win because he's the strongest. He wins because he has the right people beside him. The Golden Fleece was never just treasure. It was the price of Jason's claim to power. And once he finally had it, he discovered something every Greek hero eventually learns. Winning the quest doesn't always mean you get a happy ending. The ancient story of the Argonauts survives mainly through works such as Apollonius Rhodius's Argonautica, along with earlier and later versions of the myth, which sometimes differ in their details. If you want to uncover what happened next to Jason and Medea, watch the next story on the screen.